Welcome back to HLN News Now. Michael on us, HLN, where you get every moment of the Jodi Arias murder trial. I believe is going on. It's a hearing, and we believe that the defense is arguing against 5 of the state's rebuttal witnesses. A couple of them have already testified, and we heard them yesterday, and we'll listen to some of their testimony again. That being Travis Alexander's ex-girlfriend, Deanna Reed. Also, Jacob Mefford. He is the one who shot the video that you've seen here on HLN. Also, pictures showing that Travis was publicly affectionate to Jodi Arias, which would cut against the defense's claim that Jodi was Travis's dirty little secret. Back with us, our expert. She's a former prosecutor and a very good one in her own right. Beth Karras, legal correspondent for In Session on True TV. She knows this case backward and forward. Also with us, great criminal defense attorney Esther Panitch as well. All right. As we find out, and this was Chelsea Young, who's an employee for Tesoro, the gas station. So Jodi Arias goes to the gas station, makes 3 purchases for 24 gallons. That would be, and we have one of these here, that would one purchase for 10, which would fill up 2 gas cans, and then a purchase for 5, which would fill up another one, then another 9 gallons. How powerful is that for the jury to hear that she bought all of this gas? I mean, does that tell them, yeah, you filled up these gas cans?
Right. You are intending to be away for a long time, to drive a far distance and not stop and have a record of your transactions. If in fact there were 3 transactions, or 3 receipts, but only 2 credit card transactions, and the second one was for 5 gallons, that doesn't mean she couldn't try twice. It means she purposely paid cash for the second one and then went in and did the 3rd swipe. So she is not just premeditating with the amount of gas, but she's premeditating what the receipts are going to actually show. So if the prosecution can establish all of this premeditation, then the argument that it was self-defense or that she was acting in the heat of passion, even if she killed him without self-defense, certainly goes away. The defense argument doesn't hold much of anything in these containers. Right. If the gasoline is shown to have been the purchase that is the 5-gallon missing gas, it's another element of premeditation. It's not unlike the gun, which was taken from, or allegedly taken from, her grandparents' home. Her grandparents mysteriously have a gun of the same caliber and type that is missing at the same time that Travis, or shortly before Travis, is murdered. Jodi denies any knowledge of where this gun came from. She says it was in Travis's closet, but none of his friends talk about him ever owning a gun. So it just adds to the premeditation. If you're going with that much gasoline and you're going with a firearm, when does self-defense come in? You just happen to be armed and happen to be ready for long-term travel, you know, at the time that your boyfriend ends up dead or murdered in such a horrific way. It takes away, it chips away bit by bit at the self-defense.
And the way you've laid it out is the way the prosecutor, Juan Martinez, wants the jury to understand it. Just the way you laid it out there does not make sense unless it was premeditated. Well, Esther Panitch, what did you think of that? Did you think Nurmi went over the line, or is that what a defense attorney has to do?
I think sometimes that's what a defense attorney has to do. We always have to walk a fine line between saying something that might offend the witness and making our point. And in this case, his point was to show that Travis could act one way with one person and act another way with another person, and still, you know, you have people who say he would never act like that. And then you have Jodi who says, well, of course he did, and she actually has evidence of it. So I think he needed to make the point. I do believe that he could have been a little less adversarial with her. I think he could have made this point in closing, and I think he could have just said, isn't it true that you only know the relationship that you had, but you cannot know what the relationship was between Travis and Jodi, or Travis and anybody else in the privacy or behind closed doors. You never know what someone, you never know. And if my experience has taught me anything, you never know what's going on behind closed doors. You might think you know someone, you don't.
Right. Hey, Esther, is there a chance that Kirk Nurmi offends the jury at all, where they might take sympathy on Deanna Reed and say, geez, don't treat her like that, and then it's a mark against him? Is that a possibility?
Absolutely. And that's what a defense attorney has to be careful about. There's a fine line, again, between offending a jury and offending a witness to make your point. And you don't want to offend the jury because they're the ones who are ultimately judging your client. I think in this case, you know, sometimes you could think Kirk Nurmi went a little too far. In this time, I thought that Juan Martinez went a little too far with Jodi Arias, and he may have alienated some of the jurors, at least at the beginning. I think towards the end, even if there was some compassion or empathy for Jodi Arias, it was probably gone after she battled back with Juan Martinez, showing that she was not this wallflower who could just be abused. So I think there's a lot of give and take. I think at some point they might offend a juror, but then they'll get it back. So I'm not so concerned, and frankly, this is towards the end of the trial. He's either already really offended jurors, or they're pretty much, they're pretty much immune to this.
Got it. Esther, as we look at some of these aspects of premeditation, you even talked about them. Okay, let's hit the rental car. So why are you renting a car? In other words, is the jury asking these questions? Why are you renting a car in Reading? Why are you lugging around gas cans? Who does this? Who rents a car however many miles away? Nobody does this to save gas. I've never heard anybody do that. The greatest penny pinchers of our time don't do that. But is the jury, do they ask those common sense questions and try and glean from that?
Yes, and I think the defense could explain one bad fact. Maybe she rented the car because it's cheaper to rent it in an outlying area than it is in the middle of a city. Or maybe, or if you had the gas cans, maybe someone can explain that by saying that maybe she knew someone who used to do that and they thought it was a good way to travel. But all of these things taken together, it's the totality of the circumstances. Even if there's a reasonable explanation for one or many, if you have so many circumstances, it's almost like whack-a-mole. You have one, you weigh down one fact, and then boop, there goes another one that's unfortunate for you. So there's just, I think, too many to show that there's no premeditation.
Got it. Yeah, good analogy there, and it seems like that's what the defense is trying to do at times. We'll have more. Would you call a witness who would tell you, how many gas stations are there? It makes it sound like that the desert, there's tumbleweeds blowing around. There've got to be gas stations on the road from either Pasadena to Mesa or Mesa heading back up to Utah. Wouldn't you want to let people know that?
Absolutely. To know how many opportunities she had to stop and what the gas prices may have been at the time if she was so cautious about comparing gas. Also, something that we discussed on the break, those are very heavy when filled. I think they're about 50 pounds each.
When they're filled up, they're 50 pounds each. So in her car, potentially, that's 150 pounds. You're not saving a dime in gas if you're lugging that around, right?
Right. I mean, you've got to weigh what if the price of the gas is less than the gas that you're going to have that affects the weight of your car. So I don't know. It doesn't seem plausible that this was really just to save money on gas. This seems like all those other little facts we mentioned, like the gun, like the rental car that's not a red car. It seems that her driving through the night, it seems like these were all puzzle pieces to be put together for premeditation.
Right. It seems Juan Martinez is doing a good job of that. We go back to Esther Panitch, great criminal defense attorney. What about that? That's an interesting point, just on human nature, as we see the split screen at times, we've shown it even. Does a jury do that? I mean, on human nature, you look at her. I mean, does a juror compare Deanna Reed, Jodi Arias? Are they thinking about those types of things, as our caller did? What's the human dynamic that plays out there?
To me, it seems it only magnified the differences. His question magnified the differences between this woman, Deanna, and Jodi. Deanna, who looks every bit as much as anybody I would be friends with. She looks like a lady. She has, shouldn't be embarrassed about her relationship. Versus Jodi, who, did all sorts of things that we can't even discuss on TV. So I think it showed the difference between the two of them, and I think that was the defense's point, was that in the daylight, Travis dated this proper young woman, and at night, he dated this other woman that other women don't like. So it showed the difference in Travis, showing that he would be with two absolutely different kinds of women. But I don't think it was a poor reflection on the witness, because I think she still maintained her integrity, and she appeared to be every bit as much of a lady.
Okay. It could come down, is it a poor reflection on Travis? It is a poor reflection on Jodi. You think that's more the pertinent question?
Yes,
that comes
I think
out
it's
of this.
more of a reflection on the ability for Travis to lead, if he did, a duplicit life, that he had two faces. He had the type of person who would date someone like Deanna, and the type of person who would date someone like Jodi. And the people who knew about Deanna would not condone the relationship with Jodi. That they were you just never know what happens behind closed doors. And this is a perfect example.
Good point.
If he's holding himself out as religious and observant of his religious faith, and then behind closed doors he's doing this with Jodi, which clearly is not part of his religious faith,
and
then
the defense has made that point over and over again. Esther, you and I were both, it caught our attention because hair dye, that's another point of premeditation, that she's changing her hair color on this road trip.
That's right. It's just another one of those whack-a-moles that just keep popping up, unfortunately.
How about that?
So you've got the gas can, you've got you've got the car, and now you have hair color and the gun. So you can explain individually all these, maybe, you know, what woman doesn't change her hair color once in a while, or I know I change my hair color once in a while. I can't speak for every other woman, but lots of women I know do. So, you know, you change your hair color, that's an innocent explanation. You want to rent a car out of somewhere else, that's an innocent explanation. But there are only so many innocent explanations before people start saying, no, I don't believe you anymore,
right.
Especially when she's an admitted liar already.
And that's what Juan Martinez is hoping for, things to add up. Esther, thanks so much. You callers, a great question. We got Lori doing extra homework for us as well. Nice work. All right, coming up more.